Hey, welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I am Representative Gary Hopper. This is the Honorable Eric Eastman to my left.
Boy, that's tall accolades. I hope I can live up to that.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And Jeff Kassel. Jeff, when we were downstairs on Matt Connerton's show, the radio show, he referred to you as doctor.
Yeah.
Is that true?
I'm a PhD.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
I used to be a shrink.
Oh, you did tell me that.
Yeah.
You told me you were a shrink. I didn't know you were a
Yeah.
doctor shrink.
Yeah, I was a university professor for a while, medical school professor, practicing clinical psychologist, and then I left the country and became an artist. I don't think I've shown you any of my artwork, have I?
No, you haven't done your
doctor, can you stop hitting the table?
Okay. Okay.
I'm going to take the rap for the doctor here.
Okay.
Take the
Well, you know,
rap.
this is really
That was a
just
good
going to
one.
be a continuation of that conversation we had, unless you have a different agenda.
I have not good on. I don't really hold any agendas because I always forget what I'm doing anyway.
Our agenda is rampant free association here on this
Right.
show. So.
Well, I'm not that kind of psychologist, but I could try.
Right.
That's a Freudian technique where you lay down and you just free associate.
It certainly is. It's also very Ken Kesey'ian.
Yeah.
Ken
Somehow
Kesey,
I'm
wow.
supposed to divine some meaning from that. It's not always easy, and it's not done very much anymore.
I see.
So I didn't know. Yeah, you're a psychologist. So I was going to write in a book because I don't know if you know, but physically I've had difficulty since I was born.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah,
no.
and I
I
had.
know you ride a motorcycle. I mean,
So physically, I've had a lot of problems ever since I was born, to the point of, and it was crazy, in and out of hospitals, and obviously, long-term physical problems cause long-term medical conditions. I mean, mental conditions, and overcoming all that. I was going to write a book called My Struggle.
oh yeah. I think someone's already written
Is
that
it they
book,
have?
right? Yeah, I've heard of that. It was in. I liked it better in the original German.
I was going to say.
Sorry. That was a long lead up to a joke.
Yeah.
Not
It
a good
certainly
joke
was.
either.
I own
No,
that
it
book.
wasn't.
It's on my bookshelf. Right
I
next-
had
right next to
a-
Salman Rushdie's completed works.
No, I had.
You
my-
mean Salman Rushdie?
I do.
Well, that's impressive.
Now it's out there, some marked man.
That's impressive.
No, I had actually my
Some dense reading there.
my grandfather was a lawyer down in Nolens, and he told my dad you should read everything, including the stuff from the enemy. So he had a
Oh,
he
gosh,
had a
yes,
copy
sure.
of, like, I think we had a copy of Mein Kampf from 1940, I think it was, something like that.
Wow. Was it signed?
It didn't make the
No.
top 10 on my reading list,
No.
although
I read
do
a
have
couple
Midnight's
chapters. That
Children.
was about it.
I do have a copy of Midnight's Children. They made it into a film.
Which one's that? Now,
Are you
that one's
aware of that?
I wasn't, as a filmmaker, I should be. Who was behind that film?
Salman Rushdie and
Heavens
a couple
to
of his
Betsy.
friends. And
Okay.
I tried to read Satanic Verses, and just the first 20 pages of it was so discouraging.
Hey.
But for the audience, Salman Rushdie got the Nobel Prize in Literature about 20 years ago,
To be fair,
and you're a filmmaker. I didn't realize that.
it depends on how you feel about the film after the screening as to whether or not you can legitimize that statement.
But you do that. You
I
do cinematography.
Yeah, just completed a feature film after 4 years' effort. In the independent world, you got to replace money with time because you don't have a lot of one, so you need a lot of the other.
Okay, that's interesting.
To complete a film, and that's what we've done.
What was the film?
It's about a woman overcoming the scars of childhood abuse, and so it's got some depth, it's got some meat in the soup there.
So it's
It's actually a rom-com, believe it or not.
Rom-com meaning
Categorically
what?
romantic comedy. But it is well written, it's very canny, and it's very candid. So we'll see how that goes. That's going to go off to film festivals this next year.
So
That'll be
are we going to get a chance to pre-screen that here in Manchester?
We just may do so in Concord. We're negotiating with Red
Well,
River
I'd like to
Theaters.
be on your mailing list. I'd like to see
Indeed, yeah, it's very powerful. Anyway, you're the guest, so.
it. It's an informal show, and
No,
seems to be.
no. We keep very strict,
do you?
narrow, very narrow.
Well, you haven't asked me to take my hat off. Now
Why?
I did run into that
We
Why do
like
you
the
wanna-
hat.
in the alderman. Why do I wear it?
I don't know what it says.
It-
So how the heck would I care
It
whether
says
you have?
taxcap.org.
Oh, taxcap.
I am the CEO of that organization.
Of taxcap.org.
tax cap, and actually, an organization that I was in about 10 years ago promoted a spending cap in the city to control spending and taxes in Manchester. And this movement actually spread throughout New Hampshire. And so a number of cities have a spending cap, and it prevents the people who are in charge of the budget from going nuts and spending tons of money. And it's other people's money. It's my money. It's anybody.
Don't they typically figure a way around it, though?
Not really. No, it's actually worked. They're very reluctant to cash.
Because you got a Democrat in there that's going to be sworn in pretty soon.
Well, that's right,
And
George Gregg.
They find all kinds of ways to deride the validity of a spending cap as if it's somehow draconian or lacks compassion or something like that.
Well, I
In order
mean,
to
people have
spin-
said that.
Yeah.
During the budget hearings and especially during the hearings in the aldermanic chamber, the mayor and everybody, the teacher's contract comes up. And invariably, the small children come forward to speak for 3 minutes
Yes.
in front of the microphone.
Do they have candles? And
they,
sway?
they look downtrodden.
Wait.
They're very upset, and they often cry.
There was a video, and I only saw. I saw.
Really good casting.
No, wait.
You'd
no.
be interested in some of these kids for your movie.
So anyway, on Facebook, I was, how you scroll down, there's different things, and there was this very tear-felt things of these. I think they're either high school or college-age kids talking about something. I forget what they're even talking about, right? And the tears are rolling, and I didn't even listen to it. I didn't care, okay? Because all I posted was, the next time you're going to do a propaganda film, please take the pictures of Che Guevara out of the background.
Were people wearing Shea T-shirts
No, there
or
was a
something?
poster with Che Guevara's picture on it in
Well,
the
it's-
background.
It's very common.
I know, but the guy was a
gleeful,
murderer.
unrepentant mass murderer.
He was a mass murderer.
Well,
But he was
in the words
communist.
of Donald J. Trump, America's done some pretty bad things too.
Oh, yes.
Oh, amen.
We don't have
Amen.
clean hands in America.
No, but advocating for
Not at
I
somebody
mean, we
who's-
did conduct a 200-year genocide against the Native Americans. You remember that, don't you, Gary?
No, I wasn't there. So,
I've
no,
got
I know,
a
but...
T-shirt that commemorates that. It's the original Homeland Security Squad.
Yes.
guys on
I'd like
horses.
to get, maybe
Bows
let
and
me wear
arrows.
that some night when I come on the show again.
Pretty
The
good.
coolest picture I took when I was down in 2009 to protest the Democrats' health care bill and all the other excesses of government they had because they had control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency. There's a Tea Party rally in Washington, D.C. 500,000 people showed up.
You were there?
Yeah, I was there.
And who organized that?
It wasn't really that organized.
Well, someone did something.
It did something. I don't know
There was some
exactly.
celebrity in charge of it?
I don't recall. But anyway, the coolest picture I took, we're walking back after the rally, and there's a woman, and it was just so beautiful. The picture was beautiful because she's standing with like red flowers, and she had a red dress. And if you guys are old enough to remember that old classic picture of the Indian, the old advertisements against littering,
Oh, of course.
With the
one
tear?
single crocodile tear.
I don't think the tear was there, but that classic weathered picture of the Indian, right?
Oh, I remember it. Yeah.
And the caption underneath was, "Trust the government."
Were you,
It was
were you
beautiful.
Were
It
you
was like,
upstairs
says
when I
everything.
started talking about Grover Nordquist? Were you upstairs?
No.
Or downstairs?
Downstairs. No.
Well, I was with Grover Nordquist last night.
Last night.
Yeah.
He was. Yeah.
And I actually got into a little back and forth with him.
He is in charge of some organization.
Yes,
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
a
Which I forget.
taxpayer.
He's the guy, Grover Nordquist, and he's pretty impressive as a guy.
He certainly is.
He's very smart, and he gave a talk for the Granite State taxpayers.
Yes.
It was their Christmas party.
Okay.
And I went, and it was at Millie's Tavern. Not
Bedford.
Millie's.
Yeah, Bedford.
Murphy's Tavern and Carriage House.
In the
Their
Bedford
new
one, right?
place
The new
in
location.
Bedford.
Yeah.
And it's huge, and it's quite nice.
Yeah.
And there were about 100 people there, and I found as I was listening to Grover Norquist, and he's given the speech thousands of times, in front of audiences.
Yeah.
And I was becoming a little bit irate because I'm kind of concerned about this tax bill that's going through Congress now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to get maybe a few scraps that fall off the table, but the real meal is going to IBM Grumman and Exxon and Donald Trump
Multinationals.
and some of his wealthy friends.
How so?
Sure.
How so?
Yes.
I've looked at. Well, we don't know the final version of the
Okay.
bill, but both versions of the bill are pretty lavish in their tax cuts for
Okay.
corporations and the
okay,
wealthy.
corporate tax cuts. Okay. Which
Corporate
is-
tax cuts and individual tax cuts. For example, the death tax is one of the things that may be abolished.
Right.
The alternative minimum tax. If you remember when that tax return of Donald Trump's, the one that we've seen surface mysteriously under somebody's door, he paid like
They were
$30
so-
million or $25 million or some huge amount of money that year. But it was because of the alternative minimum tax that he paid that.
Right.
If
But anyway, so what did you think of you seem like you were getting to a point about
well, I'm
Grover
getting
Norquist.
back to I watch the numbers. You know me.
Yes.
And Grover Norquist, he watches the numbers too, and he knows a lot of them. I mean, it would be fascinating to sit in a smaller venue. I was afraid to really, at the end of the thing, you get a microphone, they pass it around. I was afraid to take the mic because I'm kind of a
Shy.
abrasive guy,
Shy. He's shy.
and there were 100 state reps in there, all Republican, and I'm not too crazy about the tax cut, but that's heresy in the Republican Party, and
Unless you dig
because
into
I
numbers.
because I don't think we should, given that we've got a $21 trillion debt going to $30 trillion in 9 years, I think we should be having a tax increase rather than a tax cut.
No, well, yeah, but you don't understand. The argument is
I know what the argument is.
that more money will start coming back into the United
It's
States.
a fake argument,
You
if
think
I
so?
can paraphrase Donald Trump.
Why is that a fake
Well,
argument?
because the same thing happened under Reagan, massive tax cut, and it's just going to create all these jobs and
Didn't it?
The well, it did under Reagan, but you see the conditions are different now. Under Reagan, we had less than $1 trillion worth of debt. Now we have a huge
Now we've
debt
got 20.
overload. It is the fifth debt service. Interest on the national debt is the fifth largest item in the budget, going to number 4 in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And so conditions are different. Debt and interest costs are huge.
Yeah, but the
It's
idea-
hundreds of billions of dollars.
Yeah, but
does.
the premise was that if business grows, okay, because right now the United States has some of the highest business taxes, and you know more about this than I do.
I don't know that to be
Okay.
true, but I know they have business
But I know
profits
that's,
and business
that's what I've
enterprise
heard.
tax.
Okay, I'm going by what I've heard. I think we discussed on Matt's show earlier. To me, the sources of the problem are more important to me than the result, which is debt and stuff like that. But anyway,
Well, how old are you, Gary? I mean, about. Is it between
I'm a
60 and
sexagenarian.
you're 70 years old?
Sexagenarian.
You're in your 60s.
Yes.
Are you eligible for Medicare and Social Security?
Yes.
Well, you should be concerned about the outcome.
Anyway, so the idea is that most countries their taxes on corporations are much lower than us. So therefore, any corporation that's going to expand is going to go to a country where those taxes are lower because that increases their profit margin.
Gary,
Wait, let me finish.
I don't want to let you finish. I want to interrupt you because corporate America has never had more money than they have now. It's not like there is a shrinking of corporate America in the United States. Corporate America is a huge force, and Congress is their subsidiary. They are the proxies of corporate America.
Right, the big
Particularly in the
corporation-
wake of the Citizens United decision at election time.
Well, that's one.
The big
One facet of
corporations.
it.
I don't think the smaller corporations would necessarily fall into that category. But anyway, so if we can decrease that, more business would equal more money flowing and actually end up with more tax revenue.
supply side.
Supply side economics. which
Doesn't work.
It doesn't work. But
So
it did
trickle
work.
down
We-
just
Didn't work
doesn't
for
end up
Reagan.
trickling.
Why-
What
why do
happened
you
is
say it
tax
didn't-
revenue dropped, and Reagan actually raised taxes a couple of times. George W. Bush, read my lips, no new taxes. George Herbert Walker Bush
Yes.
raised taxes because we were looking at huge deficits, and there was a time when the Republican Party cared about that. They wanted a balanced budget amendment. Not anymore. Not anymore. They don't care about debt. Cheney said it. Deficits don't matter. It's a lie, but he said it and people believe it.
Right.
And so,
Now they just
as
treat it
someone
as-
who is eligible for Social Security, and I'm getting a government pension, and I like Medicare, and so when I went up, I didn't dare grab that microphone in front of 100 people that would have drawn and quartered me and lynched me in that same room. I did go up and talk to him
Yeah, but
afterwards.
look how entertaining that would have been. Why are you so selfish?
Well, there was no TV camera. For a TV camera, I might have.
Oh, they all have
How is he
cell
selfish?
phones.
I might
To
have
withhold
taken.
opinion.
I might have taken the lynching
So-
if there had been a TV camera there.
Oh, okay, okay.
But you know what I told Mr. Nordquist? I said, you don't know me from a hole in the ground, Mr. Nordquist, but I'm a little bit older than you. I'm 72 years old, and I just came out of the coronary care unit at CMC, and I had little, had somebody ramming some, flexible rod into my heart, and since I've been on Medicare and my Social Security pension, I'm kind of warming up to socialism. And I'm a little worried about this debt because the two biggest items in the federal budget are Social Security and Medicare.
Medicare.
And so there's this fear out there in Democrat land that when the deficits get really horrendous because they keep cutting taxes, that they're going to start hacking away at these big entitlement programs, which you and I are beneficiaries
But they've
of.
been doing it with Social Security. They've been raiding the coffers for years.
Well, they
not?
took the surplus, but they gave them an IOU. Of course, I agree with you. They that shouldn't have been permitted. That they shouldn't have used all those surpluses, hundreds of billions, if not trillions of surpluses, to fund government operations.
True, and they refer to it as an entitlement, which is absurd. It's a misnomer.
What's not an entitlement?
It's not an entitlement because you
Heavens knows,
earn
it's
it.
your money. You paid into it. It's
You
your
pay
account.
into it,
Well, actually,
and that's actually if they
the
start.
Medicare is you pay into it much less than you get.
But
out
but
of it.
if you're talking about cutting entitlements would be reasonable to cut into, but entitlement would be somebody who's never paid into it at all, who moves to this country and says, "Oh, I need
I'm entitled."
Now I'm entitled."
You mean like a?
We've stirred the bee's nest. We have an incoming call. May we take
We do.
that?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
These people hate me. These people that call in here, they hate me.
That's okay.
Oh, I already hate you, so
Okay.
why should they be different?
I've got it.
You've got it.
Welcome, caller, to the show.
Dude, I told you I got it twice.
What does that mean, Mr. Engineer? Hello, welcome to the show.
Hey, I was just listening a few minutes ago, and I heard your guest say something I thought was kind of
See what I mean?
Okay.
over that.
All right. Which part of what he's had to share
You
was
can't use
odd?
four-letter words, by the way.
All right. Well, he was talking. He said that deficits are being caused by tax cuts, and he just said that there's going to be these deficits because of tax cuts. Doesn't he understand that cutting taxes increases revenue to the government? Doesn't he understand that?
No, I don't.
Let's give him an opportunity to answer that question fully.
All right. Go ahead.
Guest?
What was the guest's name? What is your name, sir?
Eddie.
Eddie.
Thank you for
Well, Eddie,
question.
I mean, we've had tax cuts before, and they are popular. And lots of times, Democrats in the House and the Senate they vote for these tax cuts because they have some big donors too that they want to repay, millionaires and billionaires that lobby for these tax cuts. But it generally does not result in a flood of new tax revenue, which is why under Reagan, when this program really first started, tax cuts, big tax
Try
cuts.
JFK. Try Calvin Coolidge.
You know, JFK.
Cut taxes and it increased revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Well,
want to hear your input on this. I know
okay.
you're a House rep.
Okay.
Don't you agree that?
Okay, Mr. Caller, let's check with our guest and see if he's had a chance to fully answer your question as
All right,
agreed.
Go ahead, Doc.
under Reagan and under Bush,
you, Eddie.
they actually raised taxes several times to compensate for the shortage of revenue. The projections did not meet the reality. That's what I'm trying to say.
Nothing.
All
Go
right,
ahead. Go ahead.
Here's the deal. Also, what drives deficits is government spending.
Absolutely.
Drives deficits.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt.
You're right about
All
that.
right, well, what does Gary say about it? Now, Gary, you're
do you
a
think, Gary?
Republican House member, right?
Right.
Do you agree that cutting taxes increases revenue to the government?
Increases revenue to the government. What do I think? Like I told Jeff, and what I've said on the show before, is I believe that we got to start attacking the root causes of spending to begin with. To me, all this is all BS. In other words, the government right now is encouraging and paying for people to have children out of wedlock.
I get all that. I get all that crap.
Yeah.
Does cutting taxes increase revenue?
I know that that's what I've heard, but I do not know enough about the subject to know that that's necessarily the case.
What about
I
listener
thought
number
Jeff was
3?
talking all this.
What does listener number 3 say?
Listen, Jeff, are you familiar with the Laffer curve?
Yes, I am.
Full name?
Yes,
Art
I am.
Laffer, okay, who served under Reagan. It goes like this. If government taxes at 0%, right? 0% is a tax rate. That would equate to zero revenue for the government, correct?
Right.
I mean, obviously, right? You follow me so far?
I do. I'm
Okay.
following you. Like a
The
laser.
government taxes at 100%, you would also have no revenue to the government. Because if taxes were 100%, nobody would bother to earn a nickel because it would all be going through the government. Now, at some point between 0% and 100%, you have the maximum amount of revenue to the government. Point being, it's not as simple, the higher you go, the more revenue.
Right.
I agree.
It's not quite that simple.
I agree. But let me say this. If you really want to stimulate growth in the economy, you don't give tax cuts to billionaires. You give tax cuts to people that don't have enough money because they're going to spend it. The billionaires are going to buy stocks and bonds and high-end mansions. People like me, you give me $5,000, I'm going to spend that
All
money.
we're talking about, income is one measure of wealth, okay? So in other words, if a guy lives on the East Coast or the West Coast and he makes $127,000, that might sound like a lot, but he's got a wife, 2.3 kids, and he's got a high cost of living. We don't know that person is wealthy, okay? By the same token, you might have a guy that lives in the Midwest, he makes $52,000 a year, but he's got $500,000 worth of gold. So my only point is, income is only one indication of wealth. It's only one indication.
You're right.
Well, the thing is that in that scenario, that 0.3 kid, you realize how
Yeah.
much medical work it takes to keep a 0.3 kid alive? I mean, that's freaking expensive
Yeah,
right there.
Well,
I get it. You're going averages here. My point is,
A little life
Right.
support.
income is only one measure of wealth. And I'm trying to tell you guys, cutting taxes increases revenue to the government. That's all I'm trying to say. Besides, if you look at the other end of the spectrum, you want to give a tax break to people who don't pay taxes? I mean, what's the earned income credit? You know what I mean? What's the...
Well, my belief is if you're going to give tax credits to anybody, it should be to small businesses to make their tax burden as low as possible because
Well, sure.
they're the ones who actually employ a huge percentage of the population and can afford to, pay their workers so that they're not on food stamps.
okay, you've made your point, but the issue is very complicated.
All right, thanks for the call.
Eddie, thanks
All
for
right,
calling in.
Have a good night.
Have a
Yeah.
great night.
Yeah, Jeff.
Yeah, the issue is very complicated.
Oh, of course it is. It's not as like Eddie gave that curve. That's very simplistic, and it's true. But what that percentage is of tax
For
burden,
example, George Bush #2, big tax cut. In the first year of his presidency, it wasn't his tax cut. Congress did that.
Yeah.
They enacted it, and what happened is we started getting incremental deficits. So during the Clinton years, the last few years of the Clinton years, we were running marginal surpluses.
Yeah, but by the same token, as soon as Obama took office, he started taxing more,
No,
and the deficit went through the roof.
there were increases in taxes only to the wealthy under Obama.
Well, whatever, it's still the result of which was, I think he.
But again,
spent
it's more complicated than what you're saying because we had a financial collapse. Almost every big bank in the country collapsed.
Yeah, and who got the money?
Someone got the money. Someone shorted those collateralized mortgage obligations, and some hedge funds made
So
a great deal
when
of money.
when the federal government took your tax money to spend,
But sometimes money just disappears. It just evaporates. Just like the Federal Reserve can create money out of nowhere, it can also evaporate into nowhere. you have to. I mean, maybe, to me, politics, and you've got a political life. I don't. But politics is about the money. It's about who you're going to get it from and who you're going to give it to. Right.
Right.
I mean, you decide that every day up in the legislature. What are we going to fund? What are we not going to fund?
Right.
Where's the money coming from?
Right.
And so there's this back and forth and this argument. Right now, we have legislation, and I'm very concerned about these shortfalls. And the projections from the Congressional Budget Office and nearly everywhere else is that these new tax laws, when they're finally implemented, are going to cost $1.5 trillion in shortfall, in deficits,
I see,
over 10 years.
I think I would like to, with as little understanding of the subject as I have, and I really don't have a limited understanding, I know that since Trump has been in office, like for instance, last week, which story came out?
Okay, we're going to get to the fake news.
No, this is, I don't remember.
He mentions the word Trump, and that's something that's fake.
No,
that
no,
it?
no, that's not it. We were talking about this earlier. That's what he's referring to.
Quoted Trump.
ABC Trump, Flynn testified. Okay, I think it might have been this story. ABC came out and said that Flynn was going to testify that candidate Donald Trump had asked Flynn to contact the Russians. I think it was this story. I could be wrong on this. Right? So ABC News comes out with this story. The Dow Jones went down 300 points.
It's not even a decimal point.
I know.
On the
300
industrial
points.
average.
300 points, right? Until later on in the day, they had to retract it because it wasn't candidate Trump. It was President Trump asked Flynn to contact the Russians, which is what he's supposed to do.
Well, I'm not so sure about that.
But anyway, what I'm getting at,
in my mind, there's a little too many there's too many people in the Trump campaign and the Trump organization and the Trump cabinet talking to Russians.
they're supposed to.
Why?
They're supposed to talk
Why
to
are we talking?
Because they're president of the United States, supposed to talk to the Russians, English, the French,
Well, that's your story. But
not
that's
the
my story.
Lithuanians,
These people-
obviously. You wouldn't want to talk
The
to
Russians. The
Lithuanians.
Russians run a kleptocracy.
Yes.
It's a mafia state.
You still got to talk to them.
Well, we can talk to them, but what are they talking about? That's the question. What are
The
they
Middle
talking
East.
about?
The
Are they-
Middle East. We've got a lot of stuff
The
going on in the
Middle
Middle East, and they've got their
You and I
thumb
will
on it.
never know what they were talking about.
We
will
don't.
never know.
But-
Only
but to
NSA
say-
knows.
yeah, but to say that they
because
shouldn't
they've
be-
got mics all over the room.
To say that they shouldn't be talking to them is insane.
That's not the problem.
Well, it
Anyway,
is.
my point is, okay, this fake news comes out, the Dow Jones drops, then all of a sudden they realize it's fake news, the Dow Jones recovers. Trump has been in office a year. I'm willing to bet, and I don't know what the numbers. You probably actually know what the numbers are.
I do.
What are the
The Dow Jones is up about 20%.
I know
since
that.
Trump.
No, I don't care about that. Consumer spending over Black Friday and what do they call the Electronic Monday? Cyber Monday.
or something.
whatever.
Okay, over that weekend,
It's up.
how much?
I don't know.
Huge, right? I bet it's huge because consumer confidence is up.
And that's due to Trump.
And that is due to Trump.
How can you make that correlation?
How do I make that correlation? Because
He divined it.
no,
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 the
it is
man's
not.
got a point. I'm just driving in.
Okay.
No,
Let's park this thing.
it is because they know if Obama or Clinton was still in there, they would still be using the government to attack corporations, not help them or help them along, or at least not destroy them. I mean,
You think Obama was destroying corporations?
oh yeah.
Well, how come Trump is getting credit for the Dow Jones Industrial Average climbing
Correct.
since he's been president? It climbed almost every month that Obama was president. How come you're not giving him any credit for that? How come you're not giving him any credit for saving the banks, for saving General Motors?
Okay, how much did it climb in the previous? Because I won't go back to 2009 because that's not fair. Like you said, the stock market, the real estate market was going kablooey. So let's take the last year, 2000.
No, let's take 2009. Let's take 2009 until he's done.
Well, the
No.
I
phrase,
will tell you, the stock market was up about 280% under Obama.
these are true
Which
numbers. I remember them.
percent per year?
Not per year, but
What was-
over that period.
What was the number per year?
I don't know what the number. You can do the division, divide 8 into that. But the point is that everybody is so partisan now they're forgetting to look at the things that really count. And you got the Trump people, you got the Roy Moore people. People are arguing every night on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News.
It's true. We're more polarized than we've been since the Civil War, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
We have a caller.
Line one.
Let's bring it in.
The green button like last time.
Hey, welcome to Rock Paper Hand Grenades. Who do we got on the line?
Hey, how you doing?
Norm.
Hey, the one thing, Gary, you're right. Black Friday and Cyber Monday, compared to when 5 years ago and up to now, has tripled in sales. So the economy people really enjoyed. The businesses are flourishing out of it. And now, no matter what Trump does, he'll never do anything right. Look at how they're slamming him now. But Trump, has brought an economy. There's 15,000 jobs now in New Hampshire that are going unfilled. And I don't see any other president that had that kind of flourishing. And Trump is all the way. And remember, he's the best president we got. Thank you.
Thanks for calling, Norm. Appreciate it. Wow, that was a resounding,
I take it he was a Trump voter.
Apparently
I
so.
think so.
It's just what I find interesting is the way that people conflate these circumstances with the activities of one person sitting in a chair in a room.
Right.
I'm not sure that's necessarily that there's a direct connection there.
I think
understand that symbolically people want to buy into
Well,
that.
I mean, if you're going to look at a vote, Wall Street votes every day, but they vote on the economy.
Right.
And most people care about you. You got a bad economy. That incumbent's going to have a tough time getting reelected.
Right.
In a bad economy. That's what happened to George Herbert Walker Bush.
That was actually one reason why people were surprised Obama got reelected, because the economy wasn't doing that great.
It wasn't doing that great, but it was doing a lot better than it was when he first got elected.
Yeah, but he could have done nothing, and that would have been the case.
It was a slow recovery, and people didn't like the pace of the recovery.
Well, see, these elections are not only about the economy. One of the things that favored Obama is he is kind of. I mean, a lot of Republicans don't believe this, and I'm a Republican. Obama is kind of funny, and he's kind of charming.
Oh, yeah.
And
I don't disagree with that.
And Romney wasn't.
No, Romney was milquetoast,
He was a business guy. Obama's not.
He was the guy that fired me once. That's what many people subconsciously told themselves.
Yeah, they did a good
Romney
job
was
of...
an archetype of that jerk.
Well,
who fired
and
me
he
once.
did. I mean, his company, Bain Capital. I happen to know somebody that worked. They hollered it out and bankrupted the company. And this IT friend of mine actually works for that company now. And that's some of the things that Bain Capital did. And that was a problem for him. That was a reputational problem for Romney. Romney's a smart guy, and probably would have made a good president. And he wasn't a bad governor of Massachusetts.
Right.
But it takes. There are a lot of things that go into the decision mix when it comes to an election. And Obama had some momentum going in his favor. Yeah, we didn't get 3% growth every year. We got 1.5% or 2% growth. But compared to the way it was in 2008 and 2009, 2008 was the election, we had a massive collapse. And that collapse, George W. Bush and Paulson, who was his Treasury Secretary, authorized a socialized bailout for huge capitalist corporations.
Right.
Correct.
Banks, insurance companies.
Obama went up there and supported it.
He did.
He went up there before he was president and asked the
for it.
Democrats to support it in the Senate, the bailout.
and the
he was
reason-
part of the bailout.
Okay, and I agree. And the reason he did that is because this country and the world runs on credit. And if the banks are destroyed, they cannot lend money. And that is why they decided, instead of letting the banks go down and then reconstituting them, they decided to save them because they were taking a chance either way.
Because
They
all
had-
their best friends are caught and picking in the banking industry.
Well, I mean, Obama got a lot of contributions from Wall Street. He did well that first
so did
time
Hillary.
around. And so did Hillary.
Hillary was quoted in one of those Wall Street meetings.
And so did Donald
as,
Trump.
As saying that it's absolutely necessary to say one thing when I'm behind closed doors with you and something completely different when I'm on the campaign trail.
You're telling me politicians are two-faced?
Not
They're
me.
hypocrites?
No, I would never say
He was
that.
just willing to say it out loud.
Yeah. All I'm saying about the tax bill is if you really want to stimulate the economy, you give money to the people that'll spend it, not people that are going to inflate one
Yeah,
of the
but-
most inflated stock market bubbles in the history of the country.
By the same token, the people you're talking about giving money to, you shouldn't be giving money to people who haven't paid in.
Why not?
Why?
I'm just being a devil's advocate here. I actually agree
Because then it's charity. It's not because you're not reducing their tax burden, which I agree with. I think the middle class. In that I agree with you that the tax burden on the middle class should be reduced because they're the ones who are working
No,
paycheck
actually,
to paycheck.
I'm not saying that.
But-
I'm saying we need a tax increase, not a tax cut.
Anyway, I think there should be, but we shouldn't. Some of the people that don't even pay into taxes were complaining because the government wasn't giving them enough of the money they don't pay back.
It's not about, when these you're right. Taxation, in many ways, the definition of it is theft.
Right.
They're taking one person's money and they're giving it to somebody else.
Of course.
And there are people that would argue that the Democrats are buying a constituency, 109 million people on some form of means-tested welfare.
Correct.
I know a few numbers too, and they can count on many of those people to vote Democrat in the next election.
Yep.
And so, if the money is spread in the central part of Alabama, the heavily black regions of the state, and these people are on welfare, they're going to want to continue that check coming in, those food stamps. I understand that argument. And it's a cynical argument. And
Is it
It's a
accurate?
particularly craven way of looking at politics.
I
and
don't
economic
know if it's
policy.
accurate.
I think it is.
But
Hey,
but this is the United States of America, and this is not a country where we really want to see people starving to death or having no place to live. Now, personally, I would rather people on some form of means-tested welfare participate in some community service and work. I'd like to see these devastated cities rebuilt.
right.
I'd like to see these roads fixed and the bridges fixed.
If you get that many people on welfare, that's that many more
You know what the
people that can
welfare budget is?
Like Detroit, you have all
You know
these
what the
people
welfare
sitting around.
budget
Why
is?
not pay them to work?
It's fairly
Why not?
minuscule.
Why not?
What?
And I'll tell you why not. Because the unions don't like it.
Oh.
One half of the union membership is municipal and state unions. And there's some federal there. 7 million government workers are in unions. 1/3 of the labor force. And the rest of the country, another 7 million. And unions are not really a force in the private sector much. In some smaller businesses like a Pepsi plant or something, they have unions that protect them. But, the unions protected the working man for a long time. But now, if you start looking at salaries, and we've talked about this before on this very show,
Yeah.
municipal salaries are pretty high.
They're ridiculously high. It
And the
used to
benefit
be
package is high.
It used to be firemen and police officers and stuff like that used to make enough to live on.
Right.
It wasn't, if you were going to college or something like that, you would expect to be, and you're working for white collar, you would expect to be making a certain range of money. If you went into blue collar, you were expected to get a certain range of money. And that was usually pretty similar, but usually a little bit more than what the police or the firefighters made.
When I moved to Manchester,
now it's the
city
opposite.
workers didn't get paid much.
Now you got people working in fire stations that are making more than people with master's degrees.
46. That's true. 89 police officers out of about 225 in Manchester are making over $100,000 a year, with an average of a $50,000 benefit package, with pretty generous
There is
retirements
no
and
way they
healthcare
could get that in the
benefits.
private sector.
So that's 40 to 45% of the entire police force. Is that what I'm hearing?
About 40% of it.
Hey,
yeah.
I want to get to something before we run out of time
Okay.
because I wrote stuff down. So
is your show.
I don't write down stuff very
It is your
often.
show.
Do I? Right? Okay.
No, I'm actually kind of panicked because you've got no.
Okay, I've got. Okay, so I'm doing this for a different reason than you might assume. So fake news, and this is just in the last week or so. Okay, fake news. Washington Post reporter tweets a picture of a Trump rally. Okay, and it goes viral. Well, it turns out it was a picture of a very sparsely populated Trump rally, but it was hours before the Trump rally. With
Okay.
an actual Trump rally was packed to the gills.
So it was misleading.
It was deliberately misleading.
Okay.
Okay?
Not the
What
first-
happened to the reporter after that?
I don't know.
Was he fired?
It doesn't matter.
Well, it does matter.
WAPO,
No,
I doubt it.
it doesn't matter to the point I'm trying to get at. ABC. We talked
did
about
that
this
already.
earlier. Yeah, but I can repeat it. ABC. Flynn is going to testify that Trump told him to contact the Russians when Trump was a candidate. A few hours later, they had to retract it and say, nope, it was when Trump was president. CNN. This is, like I say, only the last couple of weeks. CNN posted a story about Trump getting inside info into WikiLeaks. So the WikiLeaks load of information about the DNC, supposedly, according to this report, Trump had gotten that before the general public or anybody else had it. So he was getting inside information, and that was kind of proof of kind of collusion. Well, that went viral, and then a little while later they had to retract it because the actual email was after everybody else had access to it. So Trump didn't have any inside information.
That was my
It
next question. When did he
Yeah.
supposedly
Well, the
do
first
this?
report said it was before it was publicly available, and then when they actually looked at the email, it was after it was publicly available.
So how
Like 10 days difference.
how conspicuously did CNN post its retraction?
Yeah,
Oh no,
exactly.
it got a lot of lineage in the
Did it?
newspapers. Oh yeah,
Okay.
But the thing is,
and
it's like,
mostly on Fox and Breitbart, but it was discussed on MSNBC.
but the problem is like we were talking about downstairs, and you're a psychologist, so you know this. That if
That's why I asked if the reporter was punished,
Oh.
because
Well-
he
well,
he has
no.
an interest in his career, not
Yeah.
ending.
Anyway, there's usually a golden parachute. But anyway,
No, not for reporters.
the
Where's Lauer's golden parachute? He's
Exactly.
gone.
Oh yeah, sure. I'm sure he's really hurting. So, as a psychologist, if somebody reads X in black and white, that's ingrained into their possibly long-term memory. A retraction about that information later does little to undo that.
A
Now-
false story does damage. You're right.
Okay.
But also, people are looking for biased confirmation when they're listening to stories. That's why you tune to certain channels, and why you tune to certain channels, and why I tune to certain channels, because we have certain ideas in our head.
Actually,
and
no.
we like to. I mean,
No.
most of us don't tune to channels where we're going to feel some kind of ego deflation, ego dystonic
it's
reaction.
not. That is not why I don't listen to others. I listen to NPR until I hear a lie, and then I get pissed off and turn it off.
And what do you turn on after that?
I usually, and I don't like to, but I
Turn on one of your own
I
programs.
turn on Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh is actually really good. But anyway, I turn on something else because I know they're lying. They say stuff, and I know it's one-sided. I know they're lying.
Well, they're doing a disservice to America because, as we discussed,
That's the point.
as we discussed in the radio show an hour ago, America doesn't know what to believe anymore,
They don't.
and so they don't know who to vote for. They don't know who to believe. They don't know who's good, who's bad, and
They don't know
and
who's
it
telling the
creates
truth
tremendous
anymore.
political confusion among the electorate, which is why we ended up with your hero Donald Trump and somebody else's hero Hillary Clinton. I didn't vote for either one of them. I voted for the pot smoker.
Which one's
Yeah,
that?
and the Libertarian, Gary Johnson. Even though he wasn't a great candidate either, but he wasn't an obvious thief
How
and
did
liar.
you guys
Past
do that?
Past that Aleppo.
How did those guys? They finally
I didn't know
had.
where it was either.
They actually had an election where they could have pulled in a huge percentage of the vote because nobody was really that satisfied with either candidate. And then the Libertarians put up.
Who did you really like? You like Cruz, right?
Oh, I love Cruz. I thought he was
He
straightforward.
was
and
your
very
number one guy in
articulate.
the Republican.
I wanted an election. I wanted a vote from Bernie Sanders and Ted Cruz so that we could actually have a legitimate debate
Between
over
capitalism
communism
and communism.
and socialism or communism. And
you wanted the
debate.
Bolshevik to run for president?
I wanted a legitimate debate about issues instead of how many times Donald Trump grabbed some girl's butt or
So you
how
wanted
many
you
times
wanted
Hillary's-
Lenin and Senator McCarthy to go at it in the public eye. apparently.
Exactly.
Point of order.
Mr. President.
Look, I mentioned to you already that I lost 3 friends on Facebook last night.
No,
Over-
after this show, you won't have any at all.
Last night?
I was
Wow.
typing a response that somebody put up a picture of Donald Trump with a lot of beautiful women, and they said this guy's always around beautiful women. These attacks on him are completely unfair. They orbit around him. Beautiful women orbit around Donald Trump.
So that must mean he's right.
I didn't know what it meant. I started making comments, and all of a sudden, I was called a communist.
Oh, you want to, I did one better. I thought this is super
That's
great.
great.
No, you'll
Well,
love
those
this.
are some great friends you lost right
Yeah, I know. I love this. This is when I posted. I couldn't believe the vitriol. That
People do
attacked
get
me.
pretty upset.
This is beautiful though. I took Jesus loves you, right? And then you know how you have the translator. I translated into Arabic.
Okay.
Okay, so now I got Arabic. I put that on a black background. And I thought it would be the funniest thing in the world because it would look like an ISIS flag, but it actually says Jesus loves you. Right? I thought that was the contradiction there was just beautiful.
And did you get a
Oh
response?
gosh, people are pissed. Oh,
Which
man.
people?
I don't know. You know, tenth of the. I put it on a Donald Trump deplorable Facebook page. And
see.
oh man, they tweaked. I took it down just because it was like, wow. Some people can't take a joke.
You don't like to stir the bee's nest at all, do you?
No.
No, he would never do that.
No. Then I told you this earlier, right? Did we already do the about the book I was going to write, or was that on Matt's show?
I don't recall it. No.
Did my struggle?
Yeah, we already did that. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
you did that right at the top of the show.
Yeah, I did that. Okay. I can't remember.
We did talk about Roy Moore. Were you watching the returns on that? Earlier,
It was.
Mr. Hopper said that he said that he would have voted for Roy Moore.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's because of what we just talked about.
Based on his politics and his qualifications.
No. Well, yeah, because I'm a conservative.
Okay.
But that's part of it. It's just that with all this, this is like in the last couple of weeks, major fake news stories.
Of course.
How do I know? First of all, it's like 30 years ago, and we all know as older guys that the norms of behavior around women have completely changed. Now, I don't think that grabbing a girl's butt, I've never done that. I think that's, I've had my butt grabbed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But,
By a woman or a man?
woman.
Woman. Okay.
I had guys hit,
Again, context.
This is
all context.
This is the greatest one ever, right? Okay, so I'm hitchhiking. Okay, I'm heading up 495. I'm trying to go to Worcester. I forget why I was going
That's
to
pretty
Worcester.
cool context. Okay.
Okay, so I'm heading up.
Probably some drug
This is-
connection.
No,
down
no.
there,
This
huh?
is how unobservant I am. This will blow you away. Because when I'm talking to a guy, I'm looking at their eyes or whatever.
I know where this is going.
Did you already hear this? Did I tell you this?
Please do continue.
Okay. So I'm hitchhiking. I get in this guy's truck. I'm sitting there and I say, hey, nice day. I don't know. It's like 70 degrees out, blue sky. Nice day. The guy didn't say anything. Whatever. He's giving me a freaking ride. I don't care if he likes to talk, None of my business. So I shut up. A little while, go about 10, 20 miles up, and I says, I'm going up 293 towards Worcester. I got to get out. He lets me out. I didn't know until I got out, was stepping out of his truck, that he didn't have pants on.
He had nothing on?
He had nothing on.
Not even any underwear?
I didn't look that close. All I saw was bare legs when I got out. And that was enough. I'm not going to look further.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
It takes all kinds.
It takes.
Truck drivers, they live in those trucks.
No, it
they
wasn't
sleep
that.
in
No,
them.
it wasn't that kind of truck. It was
Wasn't
like a
that kind of
pickup
truck.
truck. It was just a regular.
I'm going to drive around pantsless and pick up hitchhikers.
Well, this is
just
the
because
risk
I'm
of
an
taking
altruist.
rides. A lot of people warn you about hitchhiking.
Well, this is when I was young and cute too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was entertaining. A couple times it got a little sketchy.
It ended well. You got your ride.
I got my ride. I don't care.
Little
No,
peep.
and then the fact, the fact that I didn't react at all to his insanity, probably made him super angry.
How old were you when this happened?
20,
20?
19, 20. Something like that.
Do you see people? I don't see people hitchhiking much anymore.
No.
No, I think
I think people are afraid now.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
There's enhanced prohibitions about it because of the
It used to be in the
Foolishness that it
70s,
used to-
60s and 70s, everybody hitchhiked everywhere.
I hitchhiked.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm an 80s kid. Well,
Right.
60s kid, but came of age in the late 70s and 80s. And we did it then.
I used to hitchhike to New York from Philadelphia. I didn't have any money. I had a car. I was going
Yeah.
to college. You know.
Yeah, sure.
But, I mean, there were a couple of incidents that that made me stop. You just never know what you're getting into. You got to be a
No.
little bit careful. Just like the news. You're talking about the news. You know, you can't believe what you hear now. You can't believe there are no trusted sources anymore.
For the most part, I agree, but I think
I
if
wish
somebody
I wish
is-
somebody would post, like, I wouldn't mind looking at a liberal website or news source if I knew what they were writing was the truth. But I
And
don't
how
know.
can you know now?
So you want a cheat sheet of sources, regardless of their bias,
Political- yeah,
that have
bias.
integrity?
I don't care if people are biased if they tell you ahead of time.
I think you got to go out of the country for that kind of source.
well, you know,
And even then, it's you go to
I go to
you-
BBC. There's you know,
BBC is biased.
I go elsewhere too. Germany, Russia. They've all got news outlets.
see,
They all have a
you
bias.
do this on radio or on TV? You have a special.
Deutsche Welle Radio out of Germany is actually strong. There's an online source called Global Post, which is global. You know,
And you
That's a
do you
good one.
listen to German radio pretty often?
Not religiously, but I find it to be credible.
I
I mean, they've
have
got an
wondered-
English outlet.
I
so-
have wondered, you know, on Facebook you see it occasionally. People are highlighting some of the violence in Europe and in
Sure.
Germany and Sweden and Norway and Britain.
It's hard to know how true it is.
Yes, it's hard to know if it's really happening because I noticed Merkel got reelected, and
Yeah.
given the way Merkel
Yeah, but-
opened the gate of Germany, that led to migration all over Europe to these North African migrants. I wondered, whether these stories that we're seeing are true. Trump
Well-
actually talked about it a little bit.
Yeah,
during
well, the
the
thing
campaign.
is from my
Is it true from what do you find are these stories talked about in the news programs you're listening to in Germany?
Yeah, they do.
They do talk
They're,
about
they're very candid about that.
yeah, but that's English. You listen to it in English, correct?
Well, of course, it's for the English-speaking market.
Okay, so
But,
my understanding is that
They
in
speak
the,
English in Germany.
in the
Yeah,
German market, a lot of that stuff is suppressed.
It is.
That's what I'm told. But
You-
how
you also-
do I know? I
but
can't
you've
even
got
trust.
others, too.
What do we cover? We covered CNN, ABC, and the Washington Post.
You
All
just-
of them lied in the last 2 weeks.
You got to be more shrewd, and you got to take more time, but to find sources that may have merit. The problem is people don't have the time. Most people are running for their lives, like gerbils, to try to make ends meet and try to make things work. So they want their baby food because it's quick and easy. So they flip on whatever
I know people
major
that aren't even
broadcaster.
listening to the news anymore.
They
Greg
won't.
Yeah.
Saltz, he told me he's done with it. He said he just doesn't know what to believe anymore.
Too
He's
much
mostly,
bathwater, not enough baby. You know.
Yeah, and
Why would you
but
throw-
somehow people need to know what's going on. You're interested in the social issues, and as a former psychologist, I'm interested in why things are failing the way they're failing in the United States now. You go to Europe, you walk in downtown Paris, downtown Madrid, you walk in Florence, you don't see the slums, deteriorating cities like we have in the United States. It's just shameful.
Is
What
that-
Washington, D.C. looks like.
And yet, look at the tax burden that's on your average citizen. We were just talking about that earlier. In those environments,
66%.
What is the tax burden?
66%. And
It depends on the country.
it depends on the country totally.
Norway,
But-
I think it was.
But I don't hear them complaining about it.
You don't hear them complaining about it, and
They
they
can't
take pride
afford
in
to.
they take pride in their cities.
Get it? They can't afford to complain about it. Hey, we gotta go.
I like what you just did there.
Get it? That was pretty
Great
good.
guest. Great to meet you, sir.
It's fun meeting you. Fun talking to you.
It was
guys.
Jeff, right?
Jeff Kassel.
Hey, next week we're going to talk about Christmas with my pastor from the Goffstown Congregational Church,
Oh, nice.
Mark. He's a really nice guy. We got to talk about Christmas. 'cause
Well, when are you going to talk about
Hanukkah?
Hanukkah on this show?
Let's do that the following week. Why not?
Because the following week we're not going to be here.
Provide some parody. We're not.
No, we're not. We don't care about.
Play the
parody.
Hanukkah song by that guy from Manchester.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's actually pretty funny.
By Adam
He is
Sandler.
funny.
Adam Sandler.
Adam
yeah.
Sandler.
David Lee Roth lights the menorah. Yeah, it's a good song.
Okay, we'll see you guys next week.
Take care, folks.